Imagine, you're grieving your entire planet for a year. Then your government opens a space door and immediately loses control of the situation. Welcome back to Stargate, everybody. This is Life Lessons from Fiction, where we break down stories through character growth and belief systems and the moments that quietly change everything. And today we're talking about the first episode of Stargate Sg1, Children of the Gods. Or as I like to call it, trauma, false gods, and the government realizing that maybe they should have locked the Stargate better. What I love about this episode in this series is it's an immediate tone change from the movie. The movie ends hopeful. We won. The bad guys exploded. Daniel found love. Everybody walks into the desert sunset. SG1 opens by saying, yeah, about that. Because this episode is really about one thing. What happens after the adventure? Because beating one false god doesn't magically heal people. And this episode understands that surprisingly well for a show that also has, like, exploding wormholes and forehead lasers and, military personnel whose first instinct is, should I shoot it? When we meet O'Neill again, he's not healed. He's functioning, barely. This man is retired, isolated, and fishing in a lake with no fish because, I guess, depression needed symbolism. O'Neill isn't giving dramatic speeches, he's just, emotionally disconnected. Then, the Stargate activates and, the entire vibe changes instantly. Apophis walks in like the universe's worst house guest. No introduction, no diplomacy, just, hello Earth people, I'm here to ruin your sense of safety. And suddenly O'Neill gets pulled back into the life that he clearly wanted to escape. And not because he was inspired or he was emotionally ready, but because duty got there first. Which honestly is one of the most realistic parts of this episode. Because sometimes healing doesn't happen before the mission. Sometimes the mission is what forces you to start living again. And then there's Daniel Jackson. Still awkward, still brilliant. Still dressed like a substitute archaeology professor that survives entirely on caffeine and bad sleep. But Daniel's biggest strength is that he never loses his curiosity, and that matters, because trauma usually makes people close themselves off, and Daniel does the opposite. He wants to learn, he wants to understand people, and he asks questions before making judgments. Meanwhile, the military approach to alien diplomacy is basically, have we considered yelling at it yet? And Daniel's over here trying to emotionally connect with everybody. What makes Daniel powerful isn't his strength, it's his openness. He crosses cultural boundaries naturally because he genuinely believes that people are worth understanding. And that becomes one of the emotional foundations of the entire series. One thing that really hit me while rewatching this episode was realizing that the people of Abydos thought that Earth had abandoned them. And that's kind of heartbreaking because from Earth's perspective, the movie ended triumphantly. But from Abydos' perspective, the gate closed and Daniel stayed and nobody came back. Isolation creates vulnerability, and that's exactly what Apophis exploits. SG1 comes back to this theme constantly. People become easier to control when they feel alone. Now let's talk about Teal'c, because Teal'c's entire life changed in one episode. At the beginning, he fully believes in the system he serves, not because he's stupid, but because he was raised inside of it. Teal'c is indoctrinated, but he's not ignorant. Then he sees something that cracks the illusion. Humans fighting back. Humans protecting other humans. Humans refusing to kneel, even when they're terrified. And suddenly he starts questioning everything. Teal'c's first major life lesson is honestly terrifying. What if the thing I built my entire identity around is wrong? That's a brutal realization for anybody. We can also appreciate how fast Teal'c defects. This man watched SG1 for 5 minutes and he's like, yeah, I live here now. Also, Samantha Carter arrives and immediately changes the energy of the show. Carter walks into Stargate Command already knowing that she has to prove herself constantly. Now, yes, the reproductive organs line has aged like yogurt in the car, but underneath the awkward writing is actually something real. Carter exists in a system where she knows that people are already underestimating her before she even speaks. So instead of demanding authority, she just becomes undeniable, prepared, adaptable, brilliant under pressure. And I love that Carter never sacrifices her intelligence to seem cool. She is allowed to be deeply competent, which becomes one of the best parts of SG1 in my opinion. So the real lesson of Children of the Gods is this: healing doesn't happen alone. Every member of SG1 starts broken somehow. O'Neill is emotionally numb. Daniel is isolated. Teal'c is wrapped up in indoctrination. Carter is fighting to be respected. And the team works because each person carries something that the other needs. Not perfection, perspective, and trust, curiosity, and purpose. And that's why this episode still works. Underneath all the sci-fi stuff and the gods and the explosions and the ships, this is a story about people learning how to trust each other again after pain. It also gave us Teal'c raising one eyebrow at people for 10 seasons, so that's like culturally invaluable. Anyway, get out of here.